Chapter 11. Infernals in the Dark. In the aftermath of Vadis's decisive strike against the D Inferni, vengeance manifested in the form of another D Inferni and its gruesome entourage. The air crackled with the dark energy as the undead army advanced, swarming the mages who stood as the last line of defense against the relentless assault. Caught in the chaos, Dani fought valiantly, but her lack of magical power left her vulnerable. In a swift and brutal turn of events, the D Inferni struck with a single lethal blow. Its arm thrust through Dani's chest, a cold and unyielding grip, crushing the air from her lungs. A searing pain enveloped her, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze as death's icy fingers encroached upon her very being. As the D Inferni withdrew its arm, leaving Dani wounded and gasping for breath, the cold of death spread like an insidious shadow, coursing through her veins. Terror seized her heart, and in that dire moment all hope appeared to be extinguished. Yet the cruel dance with mortality was far from over, as the battle continued to unfold around her, a chaotic symphony of life and death. "No!" Vata screams, thrusting his sword through Shi Wang's head. Unable to solidify its hand without being killed itself, the D Inferni retracts from Dani and leaps backwards. Dani stumbles back, the remnants of the cult's touch lingering within her. Her breath forms a faint mist in the air, a testament to the chill that still echoes through her veins. A shiver courses down her spine, and she instinctively wraps her arms around herself, seeking solace against the residual cold. As she regains her composure, Dani's thoughts are a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. The invasive cold has left an indelible mark on her psyche, a haunting reminder of the D Inferni's malevolent touch. There's a lingering vulnerability that she can't shake off, a constant awareness of the thin veil between life and the abyss. "Purificato!" Vatus quickly chants, enchanting his sword and cutting through two attacking revenants before the blaspheme can devour his magic again. Dani's sword flickers with enchantment just as she brings the blade down through the skull of a bluish-green bipedal revenant with large eyes on slug-like stalks and 6 clawed arms. She pivots, cutting through the top of another revenant's head. As she attempts to stab another revenant, the blaspheme absorbs both the creature and the enchantment. "We can't keep this up," Vatus says, as the blaspheme devours the rest of the revenants and begins to draw from the mage's energy. "You beat one of them to 4, Dani says. "You can do it again." Vatus takes a deep breath. "Just follow my lead. We'll have to do this together." "I trust you," Dani says. "I know you can do this." "Savage Colosseum," Vatus says, spreading his magic outward to consume the 4 of them in a Greek-style arena. The blaspheme hisses as it discovers it can no longer absorb energy. "What have you done?" Shi Wang asks, a magical sword manifesting in his hand. "Is this how you killed Talak?" 2v2, Vatus continues. "Organ harvest. The object of the game is to pierce your opponent's organs, but you can only do so in alphabetical order. First one with no more organs to attack wins." "Why are you explaining it to them?" Dani shouts. "Because my ability won't work if I give myself an unfair advantage. Knowing the rules my opponent does not is cheating. Fighting with honor against these monsters is crazy," Dani says. "Knowing the rules will cost us any element of surprise." "That's just the way my spell functions. It's the only way to also shut down my opponent's powers and make our fight a physical one. No abilities, no magic, just fists, feet, and steel." "Is this how you killed Talak?" Shi Wang growls. "Through this trickery?" "I've never lost a duel in this arena," Vatus says confidently. "You can ask your friend yourself in just a few minutes." Shuang darts forward, slashing at Vatus with his sword. Vatus leaps back in evasion, but a spray of blood still splatters outward from a wound across his front. The mage is surprised at the quickness of the D Inferni. Even without boosted abilities, the creature's base speed is still greater than his own. Vatus winces, holding his bleeding wound in pain. Skin. Explain, Shuang growls. I do not understand your rules. Did you not say that it was required to explain all to your opponent? Vatus nods. Every point that you strike on my body corresponds to an organ. The organ you cut was the largest organ I have, my skin tissue. The next organ you strike must follow skin in alphabetical order, so it must begin with T through Z. What is alphabetical order? Shuang growls. Okay, Vatus sighs. I guess I'll have to change it up a bit since you don't seem familiar enough with language to make this fair. New rules. The organ you strike must yield increasing damage from your previous successful attack. Since you cut through my skin, your next attack cannot produce any lesser effect. Shuang's eyes gleam with understanding. All I have to do is maim or kill you with my next attack, and I win. Vatus grips his sword tightly. Basically. Within the Phantom Arena, Vatus and the D Inferni named Shuang engaged in a deadly dance of blades. Their swords clashed with resounding echoes, the clangor of steel reverberating through the ethereal Colosseum. Both combatants moved with preternatural agility, their movements a mesmerizing spectacle of skill and finesse. The dance of blades continued in a series of swift strikes and parries, neither adversary yielding an inch. Vatus and Shuang exhibited a remarkable synchronization, their swords weaving intricate patterns in the air. The Colosseum became a stage for their lethal ballet, each movement calculated and precise. Vatus lunged forward, aiming for Shuang's torso, but the D Inferni smoothly sidestepped the attack. In retaliation, Shuang executed a dazzling counter, his sword slashing towards Vatus's exposed flank. The Knight of Solomon expertly deflected the blow, the clash of swords creating sparks that illuminated the Phantom Arena. The fighters circled each other, their eyes locked in an unspoken challenge. Swords flashed in a flurry of strikes and parries, neither combatant gaining a clear advantage. It was a battle of skill and strategy, a deadly ballet that unfolded in an ephemeral Colosseum, captivating the unseen audience that bore witness to their spectral duel. The Phantom Arena echoed with the relentless clash of swords as Vatus and Shuang continued their duel. Their movements were a seamless display of skill and precision, each anticipating the other's strikes with uncanny accuracy. Neither combatant could gain the upper hand, their blades meeting in a symphony of clashes that reverberated through the ethereal space. Vatus unleashed a flurry of rapid strikes, aiming for Shuang's defenses. The D Inferni responded with swift parries, his movements a testament to his agility and mastery of the sword. The Colosseum became a canvas for their deadly art, the dance of blades escalating in intensity. Shuang countered with a series of feints, attempting to catch Vatus off guard. The Knight of Solomon, however, proved resilient, his sword deflecting each calculated strike. The air crackled with magical energy, as their swords collided, creating a dazzling display of sparks that illuminated the spectral battlefield. The momentum of the duel shifted abruptly as Shuang's blade found its mark, slicing through Vatus's side. The knight staggered, a sharp intake of breath betraying the pain that surged through him. Blood stained his armor and he dropped to a knee, weakened by the severity of the wound. Shuang, sensing an opportunity, pressed the advantage. He moved with predatory grace, aiming for Vatus's vulnerable state. The Phantom Arena echoed with the clash of their swords, but the wounded knight struggled to match the D Inferni's relentless assault. Despite the odds, Vatus fought on, his determination shining through the pain. He parried and dodged as best he could, the struggle evident in every movement. The ethereal Colosseum bore witness to a fierce contest between the living and the undead, each combatant pushing themselves to the brink. As Vatus defended against Shuang's relentless attacks, his mind raced, seeking a strategy to turn the tide. The outcome of this battle would not only determine his fate, but also that of the mages and the knights, facing the overwhelming forces of the undead outside the Phantom Arena. In the midst of Vatus' vulnerability, a monstrous blaspheme seized the opportunity to strike. A tentacle lashed out, slamming into Vatus' side and nearly rendering him unconscious. As he teetered on the edge of incapacitation, the blaspheme ensnared his feet, violently jerking him off the ground. Vatus' head collided with the arena floor, the impact echoing through the ethereal space. Dani, witnessing her comrade's peril, reacted with swift determination. Her enchanted blade sliced through the tentacle with a precision that defied the chaotic nature of the battle. The blaspheme recoiled in pain, its distorted cry filling the Phantom Colosseum. Dani, her eyes ablaze with resolve, rushed to Vatus' side, helping him regain his footing amidst the spectral battlefield. Dani's swift action intervened just in time, her enchanted blade slicing through the tentacle with precision. The blaspheme recoiled, its distorted cry echoing through the space. Vatus, momentarily freed from the creature's grasp, lay dazed on the ground, struggling to recover from the concussion. Seizing the opportunity, Dani moved to Vatus' side, her eyes narrowing with determination. She helped the wounded knight to his feet, the urgency of the situation clear in her expression. The Phantom Arena vibrated with the ongoing battle, the undead forces outside closing in on the mages. The blaspheme lashes its limbs towards the mages enraged, both humans swiftly dodging each attack to the best of their ability. Shuang watches this exchange carefully, awaiting his opportune moment to strike. The Infernals knows that by the rules set forth by Vatus, all he needs to do to win is deal a fatal blow to either one of the mages with his next attack. Dani is struck across the face by one of the blaspheme's tentacles, knocking her movements out of rhythm and leaving her vulnerable. To protect Dani, Vatus rushes forward, stabbing the blaspheme in the left eye. Black ichor sprays outward from the wound, causing the beast to thrash about in pain. Growling in irritation as the blaspheme bellows in pain, Shuang moves in with incredible speed to end the battle. Instead of going after Vatus again, this time it targets Dani. Vatus quickly throws himself in between them and takes a stab wound through his right shoulder. "You've lost this game, Infernals." Vatus coughs, blood staining his teeth red. "That last blow felt like a tickle, compared to the slash you dealt to my side earlier." "What?" Shuang growls, annoyed. I was aiming for the female." He goes to pull his sword free, but it has already begun to dissolve into black smoke. "You never landed a single blow to me. How can I lose to you?" To his horror, his hand and arm follow shortly after. The Infernals howls in agony as its entire body begins to burn away into black smoke. With the true threat vanquished, the mages need only deal with the blaspheme. Vatus ducks beneath the creature's attempt to bite him, and slashes its lower jaw completely off. He pivots, whipping his sword across its bulky form. The slash splits the beast's torso open, unleashing a flood of black fluids and gore. Dani slides underneath the blaspheme, swinging upwards to sever its tongue. The only damage she has dealt to the beast was to one of its many tentacles, so this attack is valid. Vatus has dealt the majority of damage to the blaspheme. The creature is unable to reason or strategize as well as its fallen comrade, and attacks in a blind rage. As Shuang, the defeated Infernals, dissipated into a swirling black cloud, a surge of unholy rage enveloped the colossal blaspheme. The creature, now bereft of its master's guidance, lashed out in a blind fury. Its tentacles thrashed wildly, seeking any target within its reach. Dani and Vatus, having narrowly escaped the tentacle onslaught, moved with unparalleled agility. With synchronized precision, they dodged and weaved between the flailing appendages. Each tentacle strike created shock waves, tearing through the ethereal arena, but the two warriors managed to evade with a combination of acrobatics and strategic positioning. The blaspheme, its movements dictated by a chaotic frenzy, seemed to target the mages indiscriminately. Danny and Vatus maintained a relentless dance, anticipating each swing and evading with split-second timing. The Phantom Colosseum echoed with the rhythmic pattern of their footwork, a shining example of their combat prowess in the face of an enraged adversary. The blaspheme's tentacles, fueled by its unchecked anger, crashed against the phantom floor, sending spectral echoes reverberating through the ethereal space. In a seamless display of synchronized movements, Danny and Vatus launched a simultaneous assault on the colossal blaspheme. Their enchanted blades gleamed with ethereal light as they descended upon the creature's skull with unwavering determination. The blades sliced through the spectral air, carrying with them the combined might of the mage's strength and resolve. The blaspheme, still ensnared in its blind rage, failed to anticipate the coordinated strikes. The enchanted blades met the ethereal resistance of the creature's form, sending ripples of otherworldly energy cascading through the phantom arena. The impact resonated with a haunting echo, and the blaspheme recoiled from the unexpected assault. For a brief moment, a fissure appeared on the surface of its incorporeal form, revealing the ethereal turbulence within. With an unyielding determination, Vatus and Danny plunged their enchanted blades downward in a synchronized strike, aiming for the core of the blaspheme's spectral skull. The blades pierced the creature's ethereal form with resounding impact, and otherworldly energy surged through the conduits of their swords. The blaspheme convulsed in a final tumultuous dance of death. Its colossal form thrashed about wildly, a symphony of spectral agony echoing through the Phantom Colosseum. The dark smoke that composed its essence began to disperse, dissipating into the ethereal realm as the unholy monstrosity succumbed to the relentless assault. Vatus and Danny stood amidst the fading remnants of the defeated blaspheme, their swords still imbued with the lingering magic of the battle. The victory was hard fought, and the echoes of their triumph reverberated in the silence of the phantom arena. The fate of Endelgion remained uncertain, but for that brief moment, the mages had repelled the encroaching darkness. As the spectral remnants of the defeated blaspheme dissipated, the Phantom Colosseum gradually faded away, leaving Danny and Vatus standing in the aftermath of their hard-won victory. Danny collapses, crying, "It's over." "I really hope that is the last one of those things we see today," Vatus says, out of breath. "You couldn't have made your spell any more complicated?" Danny asks sarcastically. "It seems to do the job all right," Vatus says with a shrug. "I did manage to take out 2 revenants evolved to a level we've never seen before. Trust me, I can never doubt your competency. You were amazing out there. You really made me feel like an amateur for sure. It wouldn't have been that way if you hadn't used your power so recklessly." "What the hell were you thinking?" Vatus shouts. "You were almost killed." "I was willing to accept that risk," Danny cries. "But Mr. Orcus, I got him killed too." "Orcus," Vatus whispers. "Was he the man that got eaten by the Revenant?" Danny nods. "He was a survivor from the fall of Checkpoint 5. He'd been stuck underground in a cavern all this time." Vatus is puzzled. Checkpoint 5 was overrun 180 years ago. There's no way any of those mages were still alive. Another loud roar interrupts their conversation. The deaths of those other powerful beasts left a vacuum. Weaker creatures are moving in to seize their territory and strengthen themselves. "Can you fend off more of them?" Danny asks. "We don't know how many or how strong they are. We shouldn't engage in battle without better intel. We won't get lucky enough to survive against a 3rd Infernals." "Wait," Danny says, searching her satchel. "I have an idea." She pulls out the magical doll. This doll should provide us with a distraction. The Draugr around here will go after the doll and leave us alone. I'm not sure if the revenants closing in on us are regular or Draugr. If they're just regular revenants, they'll ignore the doll and hunt us for our life energy. A twitching bipedal creature with long spiraling horns and a large mouth, bigger than its entire body length, steps out of the darkness. Built like and resembling a rhinoceros, the second revenant is grayish-pink in color with two large mouths and a single horn growing from its forehead. 3 long reptilian tails drag behind the creature. We're being surrounded, Vadas says, his eyes quickly darting all around as he calmly assesses the danger. A third and fourth revenant appear. The third creature is just a floating, bulbous head with hundreds of eyes. The other revenant is like a clam, with a blood-covered skull within its spiky shell. A fifth revenant emerges after the other two. This one is like a cross between a lion and a dragon. Its face is snake-like, but has a long, flowing mane of fur. The creature raises up, revealing its front paws are more like humanoid hands. The revenant hisses, a long tongue branching out into half a dozen smaller snakes extending from its mouth. Danny and Vadas tensed, their eyes narrowing as they prepared to face this new threat. The creature's grotesque form sent a shiver down their spines, its twisted features combining the ferocity of a lion with the deadly allure of a dragon. With a menacing hiss, the revenant raised itself up to its full height, its snake-like face contorted into a feral snarl. Its long mane of fur bristled with a primal energy, crackling with dark magic as it prepared to unleash its fury upon its unsuspecting prey. Creatures emerged from the shadows like specters of death, their hollow eyes gleaming with a malevolent intent as they closed in for the kill. With a fierce battle cry, Danny charged into the fray, her sword flashing in the dim light as she cut through the ranks of the undead with lethal precision. Vadas followed close behind, his movements fluid and precise, as he dispatched one foe after another with swift, decisive strikes. The revenants fought with savage ferocity, their twisted forms moving with an unnatural speed and agility as they sought to overwhelm their human adversaries. But Danny and Vadas proved to be formidable opponents, the years of training and experience lending them a strength and skill that belied their mortal frailty. The ground beneath their feet became slick with the black gore of the fallen, the air thick with the stench of death and decay. Yet still Danny and Vadas fought on, their determination unyielding in the face of overwhelming odds. But for every revenant they struck down, it seemed like 2 more would take its place, the endless tide of undead threatening to engulf them completely. With each passing moment their strength waned, relentless onslaught taking its toll on their weary bodies. As the battle raged on, one of the larger revenants, its twisted form resembling a grotesque amalgamation of various predatory beasts, lunged at Danny with startling speed. With a powerful swipe of its clawed hand, the creature knocked Danny's sword from her grip, sending it clattering to the ground several feet away. Danny stumbled backward, momentarily disoriented by the sudden loss of her weapon. The revenant advanced, its eyes gleaming with predatory hunger as it closed in on its unarmed prey. But Danny refused to back down, her fists clenched tight as she prepared to face her foe without the aid of her blade. With a defiant roar, Danny launched herself at the revenant, her fists flying in a blur of motion as she unleashed a flurry of punches and kicks against its twisted form. The creature recoiled under the assault, its grotesque features contorting in pain as Danny's blows found their mark. "We're not going to be able to fight our way out of this," Vadas says, still calm. "There are too many of them to completely clear out. Just kill one and move forward. Keep moving and don't get too bogged down in any battle. We can't let ourselves become surrounded." "I don't think I can keep up. I lost my sword," Danny says with shame. She glances backward, indicating that the weapon is behind a row of fierce-looking creatures. Vadas holds up a hand. Telemagnete. The spell draws the sword of Orcus to him. Ossidere immortui purificato. Bottas enchants the sword and tosses it back to Danny. Try not to drop it this time. The two mages spring into action, leaping in opposite directions to engage in battle, fighting furiously, dodging the Revenant's attacks and retaliating with all they have. The two mages quickly gain the upper hand. One by one, the Revenants are defeated, and Danny and Bottas are left exhausted. We can't stay here to recover, Bottas says, panting. We'll only attract more unwanted attention. They'll just keep coming at us forever, won't they? Danny asks. Any being that dies here, that isn't cleansed by purification magic, will be reborn as a monster and start its life cycle over again. This world is an endless loop of death and rebirth. Our enchantments break that cycle? Bottas nods. The Ossidere Immortui spell sends any undead it slays to the underworld, rather than allowing it to respawn here. It's much more difficult for a soul to find its way back to the Yetzira than it is for one of the Mitrio to find them and ensure that they are escorted to where they belong. Mitrio? Danny whispers. Reapers. They're former mortal servants of the Yazata of the 5th Choir, under General Sariel. Wait, Reapers actually exist? Danny asks. After all you've seen, that surprises you? Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, if Reapers exist to take souls to the afterlife, why are there so many creatures out here in the wastes? Aren't all the Revenants and their like former living souls? Any soul that dies outside of the mortal realm comes here instead of the underworld. If you die here in the wastes, your soul remains here. They also say that there is an entrance into the underworld, somewhere out here in the Yetzira, but none of us have ever verified that. It's possible that the Revenants are able to sneak out into the underworld and hunt souls there. Or sneak into our world, like what happened back in Rockland, Danny says. Several Revenants were able to attack mortals after coming through a dimensional fissure. Those fissures aren't unheard of. Wounds periodically open up in the world after incidents of intense trauma, mass genocides, war, things of that sort. Lots of souls all crossing over at once, or strong negative emotions can weaken the fabric separating the worlds. The two of them make their way back towards Checkpoint 4, battling random Revenants and reanimated Auric corpses along the way. The Checkpoint 4 tower guard spots the two mages in the distance, limping towards the wall. Lieutenant Nando has returned, Alphonse shouts. Open up the gate! The guards help the mages through the gate and check on their injuries. Alphonse hands them each a skin of water to drink. You look like you went through hell out there. That's an understatement, Danny says, relieved to be back within the safe zone. What happened? Alphonse asks. He eyes Danny with extreme suspicion. And how did you manage to get out here alone? Danny stutters, unsure of what to say. Apprentice Livingston did not have authorization to come out here alone, Bottas says. Danny is shocked that he is outing her in front of the Knights. She fooled you with illusion magic into letting her come out here. She put all of your lives in danger. Danny whispers, hurt by Bottas's words. I didn't mean to endanger anyone. Intention is not the heart of this matter, Bottas says coldly. You broke clear laws. You cannot be allowed to get away without consequences. What kind of consequences? Danny whispers, frightened. It is not for me to decide. Only the elders may hang down your punishment. The elders? Danny shouts, alarmed. You can't. They already hate me. Bodice suddenly slaps magical handcuffs across Danny's wrists, causing the girl to look over at him in shock. I'm sorry, Danny, but you're under arrest for impersonating me and entering the Yet Zero without proper authorization. Are you serious? Danny whispers. You're arresting me over this? Bodice refuses to meet Danny's gaze. I can't show you any favoritism. You broke several of our laws and put all of these mages' lives in danger. He urges her to begin walking. Come on. We have a long walk ahead of us. Yeah, Danny mutters. A long, uncomfortable walk. Alphonse turns to Vadis. What did you encounter out there? Surely the terrain out there did not deal you so much damage. No, it was not the terrain or the environmental hazards. I will need you to increase your watches and post 3 times as many men at this checkpoint. I will be speaking with Captain Arisai about giving you more bodies. 3 times as many? What is out there? Alphonse whispers. We fought multiple blasphemes, each larger and more ferocious than the last. But they were not the worst. There are things called the Inferni out there. Now that I know of their existence, everyone must be warned. They possess all of the powers of the Revenants, yet they have human-like intelligence and cunning. They are the most dangerous things I've ever faced. If you encounter one of these monsters, you must get word back to Endelgian at all costs. We cannot be caught unaware. If these creatures attack the city and we are not fully prepared, Endelgian will surely fall. They're that bad? Alphonse asks, shocked. Vadis nods. Likely even worse. I do not know how strong the ones I've faced compared to those that still remain out there in the Yetzirah. At the very least, there are 4 others remaining just as strong as their king. They have a king? My initial reaction was surprise as well. If they are intelligent and organized enough to have a monarch above them, we cannot take them lightly. The Inferni must be treated as the single greatest threat to humanity that exists. Brighton, Florida. Jake paces the apartment, his head full of worry and doubt. He did not expect the Sicarii to make their move so soon. He fears that no matter how hard he trains, it will not be enough. Not only will he be facing off against Inyana and Hui, the invitation to the tournament was broadcast psychically all across the world. Monsters of all kinds will also be coming to the island, looking for a battle. Among them will be more devils. We haven't been able to even scratch Cedrion yet, but we're expected to fight the angrier, more ruthless outcast brothers of the Yazata? What the hell are we doing? Jake says, frustrated. If you are frightened, I will take the lead. Anyone between us and Hui is just an obstacle we must remove. We will not be deterred from our revenge, no matter who is standing in the way. You say that now, but have you ever defeated a Yazata? No? What about a devil? You can have all the confidence in the world, but the reality is we can't defeat an enemy of their caliber. You sound pathetic, Ymra scoffs. Listen to yourself. You're only making excuses before we even have begun our challenge. How can you give up without even trying? I'm not giving up, Jake growls. I'm just being realistic. If you disagree, then tell me. How on earth can we stand up to a devil? Exorcism, Ymra says bluntly. Your grandfather is knowledgeable in banishing the spirits of devils from possessed humans, yes? He will teach you how to perform an exorcism. Are you serious? We only have a few days to train before we have to join up with the feds and depart for Jockey. It would take us longer than that just to get to my grandparents' house by bus. If we do not have the time to go to them in person, you will have to call them by telephone. You do have their number, correct? Jake is stunned. Yeah, I do. But how can we learn exorcism over the phone? Yamura shrugs. I came up with the idea. You will find the solution. Jake leaves the apartment to find a payphone. Dialing his grandparents, the teen is relieved to hear his grandfather answer the phone after a few rings. Hello? Gerald asks. Hi, Grandpa. Are you doing okay? Jake says nervously. He has not spoken to his grandparents since the battle against Inyana and the death of his mother. He does not dare tell them that Inyana is back from the dead. Jake, is that really you? I wasn't sure I'd ever hear your voice again. Yeah, sorry about that. He pauses. I wish this were a normal catch-up. How are ya? But things haven't calmed down much for me at all. I need your help. What is it? Gerald asks, concerned. Do you need money? A place to stay? Nothing like that. I need to learn everything you know about exorcisms and fighting devils. You aren't. Gerald's voice changes, becoming terrified. You can't. Devils are too dangerous. I don't have any choice. You can't get me out of this. But you can help me be better prepared. I need a crash course in exorcisms. I only have a few days, then it's game on. Whether I'm ready or not, the devils won't be waiting on me. Gerald sighs loudly. You aren't going to change, are you, Jake? Fine. There's no avoiding it. First, you need to memorize Matthew chapter 8. From the Bible? Yes, from the Bible, Gerald replies, irritated. The only Bible verse I remember is Austin 3:16. You mean John 3:16? Yeah, Jake says to himself. That's what I said. It isn't as powerful as an exorcism spell, but just reading it aloud will be painful to a devil if you truly believe in the power behind the words. Matthew chapter 8, Jake says. Got it. The exorcism spell itself is a lot more complicated. One mistake and it will become ineffective. I'm not sure how you can learn it in just a few days, especially over the telephone. I've got a pocket full of quarters, Jake replies. We gotta give it the old college try. In Delgion, December 12th, 1998. Danny is escorted by Vatus and 3 of the Knights of Solomon to the detention towers. Inventory all of her property and place her inside a cell with nothing other than our tower-issued robes, Vatus says, walking away. Whatever happens, I cannot be a part of that decision. You will be held here until the elders summon you. With that, the lieutenant leaves. Danny is changed into the plain robes by a female knight, while the other 2 work on inventorying her property. A set of armor, an enchanted sword, a satchel with 3 spell orbs. One of the knights calls the items out while the other writes the information down on an inventory log. A doll of some kind, an empty water skin, compass, some matches, and a cellular phone. Danny does not hear Hagano's scroll called out. Is that everything? I also had a scroll I need to return to Master Hagano. There's no scroll here, the knight looking through her property named Kevin Laksh says. But even if there was, it would be stored until you're cleared of charges. None of your property can leave the tower until the Elder's investigation into your conduct is completed, Danny is locked in her cell, and the knight logging her property is given the satchel, sword, and armor. "Store this property until she's released," Kevin says. "We'll keep an eye on her." The knight nods, taking the property and leaving. After dropping off the property in a magically sealed storage room, the same knight goes to relieve one of his fellows, standing guard in front of Adrian Scrimauer's cell. "Take a break. I've got his dinner here," the knight says, holding a covered tray. "Really? Thanks, Lufty," the guard says with relief, taking off his helmet. "I've really had to take a shit for hours." He laughs. "You've got great timing." As the guard leaves, Lufty Kostia approaches the food port of Scrimauer's cell door. "Adrian Scrimauer, your food is here. I'm going to place it on the food port. Take your tray and step back. Do not make any sudden movements." As Lufty places the tray on the port, he leans his head down to whisper to the prisoner. "You're not alone. The resistance lives and continues to grow." Scrimauer takes the tray and smiles, removing the cover to find Danny's magical doll and spell orbs. "The elders dig their own graves with their tyranny." "What should I do next, Master?" Lufty whispers. "Continue to do your duties as a knight, and wait for my signal. When the time comes, you will know what to do." Lufty nods. "Yes, Master Scrimauer." Adrian chuckles. "I was never made a master. This corrupt system was too afraid of what I represent to give me that kind of authority or prestige. I am merely a black wing of justice." "The elders choose who to make masters," Lufty says. "We do not have to recognize their judgment as absolute. There are others who are even more powerful than they are that are not recognized properly. The elders desperately cling to their power, and it makes their weaknesses obvious for all to see." Scrimauer is pleased by this. He can feel the tide turning against the elders and the city's establishment. "If we can continue to sway the minds of the other mages, we can overthrow the elders with little violence. This is the preferred method. It will only serve to demonstrate how corrupt the elders have become if the entire city turns against them, and not only allows for their removal, but cheers it loudly. The elders still have some support among the veteran masters, but the feeling among the barracks of the knights is one that desires for change. And we will be that change, all of us. The old corrupt system will be torn down, and we will replace the decay of the elders with equality and righteousness. No longer will mages be looked down upon if they are not born with magical power. Those who are gifted from birth will be treated as equals with those who have to work for every opportunity they are given. We'll have no classes or elites. All of Endelgion will be as brothers and sisters." In the magical city of Endelgion, the elder mages wielded power beyond measure, their authority absolute and unquestioned. Descendants of ancient magical bloodlines that trace their lineage back to the legendary King Solomon, the first sorcerer king, they ruled with an iron fist. Their will, law, in the city. Despite the presence of numerous masters and knights who possessed greater skill and power, the elders maintained their dominance through fear and intimidation. Anyone who dared to challenge their rule or speak out against their decree was swiftly branded as a rogue magician or a black magician, their fate sealed by the elders' judgment. The elders used their connections and influence to ensure that their hold on power remained unchallenged. Through a combination of political maneuvering, magical manipulation, and the sheer force of will, they kept the city's inhabitants in line, quashing any dissent before it had a chance to take root. Those who defied the elders faced harsh consequences, their lives forfeit in the eyes of the law. Many a talented mage or valiant knight had fallen victim to their wrath. their names erased from history as if they had never existed. Yet despite the elders' stranglehold on power, there were those who whispered of rebellion, of a day when the tyranny of the old bloodlines would be overthrown, and a new era of freedom would dawn. But for now, the elders reigned supreme, their grip on Endelgian unyielding and absolute. Misharem, Israel. Villain Gabriola exits his home to be greeted by a fair-complected man with white blonde hair, leaning against the side of the building. It is obvious that the man has been waiting for Villain, and judging by the color of his skin and hair, he is not native to the area. "May I help you?" Villain asks, feigning politeness. "Do you know who I am?" the man asks. Villain sighs. "I have a good idea. Your kind has been hunting me ever since I was conceived. That conception was an abomination that should never have been allowed to come to fruition. A mercy was attempted in snuffing your flame out before birth. Now it seems a cruelty to have to kill a creature just for existing," the man says, drawing a diamond-bladed sword. "But that is our law. The divine cannot mix with mortality. Even as a Yazida cannot breed with humans, neither shall the Devilnay be permitted to commit this atrocity." "Then find my parents and punish them. I had no say in the matter," Villain growls. "All who bear a cambion die during labor. Your mother already paid for her sins." "And my father, did you kill him? Or did he just abandon me by choice?" "Your father was the traitorous Matarael. He is no longer a concern of ours. Killing you will close the book on his lustful crimes." "Don't you have better things to do than harass me? Are there not true devils running around causing chaos? Why are you so concerned with me?" "Knowing that the other Yazata have been sent to eliminate you in the past, have never returned from their mission, I think the answer is abundantly clear." Villain manifests a glowing sword of black light in his hand. "You're afraid of me because I can kill you just as easily as you can kill a mortal." The Yazida grinds his teeth in anger, hating to be compared to mortals in such a way as to demonstrate his weakness. "You have unique powers specifically designed to counter the divine. You are a perverse experimentation. The rebellious nature of the Devilnay and the limitless potential of mortals, combined into a being transcendent of either race alone. I am not afraid of you. I am disgusted by your existence." Villain holds a hand up, manifesting the swords of all of the previous Yazata he has slain. The swords clatter to the street in a pile of 6. "I have no use for these, but I will add your weapon to my collection all the same. Tell me, what is your sword's name? I would like to know it before you die." "Laupas," the Yazata says, pointing his blade at Villain. "And I am Armisael of the 7th Choir. I will be the final challenge for you, Cambion. For your sake, I hope that you prepared before coming here," Villain says. "As you know, my powers are perfect counter to yours. I do not have to rely on special abilities or trickery to defeat a mortal. That is why I was chosen to carry out this execution. As a member of the elite 7th Choir, my skill with a sword is on par with the number 2 seed of any other choir," Armisael says. Villain attacks first, slashing his sword vertically. Armisael blocks with Laupas, but the energy generated upon their collision reduces all of the homes around them to rubble. Neither fighter is bothered by the collateral damage, and they continue to clash swords. Each swing destroys more buildings and completely evaporates human beings in the vicinity, as if they were caught within the epicenter of a nuclear blast. Impact craters swell out beneath the fighters with each swing. The air itself bursts into flames in the atmosphere. Armisael grunts with frustration, increasing the speed and ferocity of his swings. To the Yazata's growing anger, Belain seems to be barely putting in an effort to keep up. Armisael leaps back, disengaging the sword battle, and throws one hand out. Divine energy erupts from the Yazata's palm. Taste divine judgment, foul abomination. Belain swings his sword outwards, easily slapping the energy aside. Nothing you do is going to be effective against me. You are immortal. Do not think that your victories against the others means anything to me. I am an elite. I would never disgrace General Uriel and the 7th by losing to you. Armisael fires another burst of divine energy and rushes in with his sword. As Belain again swats the blast away, Armisael rises with a vertical slash. Belain fades several steps backwards in a flash of black light to avoid the blast, using a mutated form of Yazatan Shunkonido. A single line of red appears down Belain's front. How dare you pervert the divine abilities of the Yazata, Armisael growls. I don't do it actively, Belain admits. This power came naturally to me as a child. A child? Armisael screams enraged. The sacred fighting arts of the Seraphim are not games for children. Armisael runs at Belain again, this time his entire body surrounded by a furious manifestation of his anger in the form of a brilliant red aura. The Yazata again swings, forcing Belain to dodge using his black Shunkonido. Large sections of the city are destroyed. Hundreds of people are killed. What kind of angel are you that you don't care about the lives of the humans around you? Belain asks, still only able to dodge the Yazata's furious strikes. He does not dare try to block with Armisael's rage pushing his power this far. The mortals are not my concern. Only the mission matters. I was not given orders to protect, only destroy. I will raise this entire planet if that's what it takes to kill you. Armisael's sword erupts with flames, cutting deep fiery trenches into the earth. Belain evades the swings, but the heat is intense, and he instinctively flinches. Armisael seizes the moment and rushes in for the kill. As Armisael's sword moves to cleave Belain's head, the Cambion screams loudly and produces a blinding black light from deep within his body. Armisael is knocked back, repelled by the black energy. Even your aura disgusts me, Armisael growls. Everything about you makes me furious. You sound more like one of the devils than one of the Yazata, Belain says. The others I fought were much more noble than you. And that weakness is why they died. I do not share that same fault. The only thing that matters to me is victory. That is the way of the 7th Choir. Belain leaps back and readies his own sword. The fate of the people of this city doesn't matter to me. The humans have always hated me just as much as your kind does. I am a creature of 2 worlds, unaccepted by any. If it were up to me, I would extinguish all life on this planet myself. And that instinct is why you must be destroyed. Your urges are rooted in evil and depravity, sour from the second you were conceived. Bind, Belain shouts, throwing a hand out. Ligare! Black threads of energy erupt from Belain's aura and wrap tightly around Armisael's waist, wrists, and ankles. Armisael strains to free himself from the magic. Undo the spell, filthy creature. Belain grins, holding out his sword. I don't think so. I'm going to kill you now. Armisael screams, flexing all of his muscles and pulling at the threads. Full power release! White wings of pure divine energy erupt from Armisael's back. The Yazata's radiance shines from every pore, blinding Belain and evaporating his spell instantly. Armisael stands before the Cambion, waves of divine energy rolling off him and flickering like white lightning. 3 sets of energy wings spread out behind the Yazata, and a fiery halo of light flickers above his head like a crown. Grotesque eyes open up all across the wings and down the lengths of his arms. Armisael swings his sword, an explosion of divine energy erupting all around and consuming the entire city and surrounding mountains. As the dust settles, nothing remains for miles, but a seemingly endless crater. He wasn't bluffing, Belain thinks, holding his right shoulder in pain. Blood runs down his arm and drips from his fingertips. He stands just past the edge of the crater, having barely evaded death with his black Shunkonito. The power of the 7th Choir is leagues above that of the others. I really may not be able to win without effort as I have always before. I've been so used to my powers catching these angels by surprise. This one really was prepared to do anything it takes to kill me. As I said, I will destroy the entire planet if needed. It is you who determines if this is the only city that needs to end because of you, Armisael growls. And I told you that I don't care what you do to this planet or its people. I just want to be left alone. I want you and your kind to stop hunting me like I'm some kind of wild animal. That will never happen. So long as you draw breath, you're an affront to our very sensibilities. We will never stop until you cease. Belain pulls his aura into his sword until the blade swells and sighs and becomes a violent cyclone of black energy. He swings his weapon at Armisael, but the Yazata meets his attack with his own blade. The energy of the 2 swords clash, erupting in another massive explosion. Belain is knocked backwards, sent speeding away from the ruins of the city and out towards the remaining foothills. Armisael speeds after him, darting past the Cambion, and pivoting to strike him while he is still dazed. As Armisael's arm moves to swing, blood sprays out from his joints. The Yazata's eyes widen in horror as he is unable to move his arm and complete the swing. Belain stops abruptly, grinning through blood-stained teeth. What have you done? Armisael growls. My sword is not a solid object like yours, Belain says. Each time I struck you, a piece of my weapon embedded itself within your body. Belain raises a hand, bringing the blades of the other felled Yazata to him. One by one he sends the weapons through Armisael to pierce his chest. Armisael coughs up blood but remains glaring at his opponent. I underestimated just how much trickery a creature like you is capable of. Trickery or not, you have failed like all the others before you. In the end, not even the might of the 7th Choir was enough to bring me down, Belain boasts. With one final motion, he cleaves Armisael's head from his body. That settles it, Belain says, dismissing his sword. The only way I'm going to stop these Yazata from constantly hunting me and have any kind of peace will be to respond to that invitation and go to Jockey Island. I will win the tournament and use the prize to destroy the Yazata. In Delgian, Vadas walks into the tool shop of Master Hagano and sets the scroll containing the blaspheme on the counter. What is this? Master Hagano asks. I was instructed by Apprentice Livingston to bring this to you. It is the remains of the creature you requested. Hagano's eyes widen in surprise. She actually managed to kill a Draugr? She said she had no magic power of her own. I assisted her in felling the beast, but she is far more resourceful than most people give her credit for. She is very determined and stubborn. He pauses. If you tell her that she cannot do something, she will do everything possible to prove to you that you are wrong. Hagano chuckles. Amazing. I really didn't think she was anything special when she came in here, made her outlandish request. But after this, I'm going to build her the most spectacular magical tool I've ever crafted. I would expect nothing less from the legendary toolmaker, Vada says with respect. There is one thing, however. The creature contained in that scroll is a bit more of a rarity than a simple draugr. This creature absorbed the spirit of a fallen mage, and used his energy to evolve into a blaspheme. This will not complicate your specifications, will it? A blaspheme made from a mage? Hagano whispers. No, it shouldn't complicate things. If anything, it should only add to the effectiveness of the tool itself. That is good to hear. Danny will be pleased, Vada says, turning to leave. Wait, Hagano says. Where is the girl? Why didn't she bring this to me herself? She is currently being held in the detention towers by the elders, awaiting a disciplinary hearing. Are you serious? What did she do? She illegally went out into the Yetzirah. The elders already had her in their sights. They will use this infraction as a way to burn her down. How did she get past the guards? She used a spell to impersonate me. Bodice grumbles, obviously more bothered by this fact than anything else. You're going to do something, right? Hagano asks. What do you mean? She's your friend, isn't she? You can't let the elders punish her. Whatever they levy against her, it won't be fair at all. We have all had our issues at one time or another with the elders. But if they view you as a threat to their power or standing, they will make an example out of you. I am aware of their vindictive tendencies. Then you should know that you're going to do something to save her. She may have messed up, but her heart is in the right place. We need more mages with her tenacity, not letting the elders use her to scare the rest of the young mages into unquestioning obedience. Vadice nods. I thank you for your words and your dedication to your craft. I will be back to check on your progress in a few days. Without another word, the lieutenant leaves. At the dorms of Master Fordron and the Blackwings, Taurus Fordron is approached by two former apprentices of his, now both serving as Knights of Solomon. Apprentice Livingston and Lieutenant Nando have returned from the Yetzirah alive, Knight Goswin Horst says. Oh? Fordron feigned surprise. He had no doubts that Danny would return alive. Everyone else may underestimate that girl, but he is not among them. They did not have an easy time, though. They fought many difficult battles out in the wastes. There are many hungry revenants out there, Fordron says. It is quite like stepping into a swamp and being mobbed by swarms of mosquitoes. It was not just revenants, sir, Knight Ashwin Dietrich says. This has gotten the Master's attention. If not revenants, what then? Draugr? Perhaps a blaspheme, even. Word is that Lieutenant Nando reported fighting no less than 4 blasphemes, and 2 creatures he calls the D Inferni. D Inferni? Fordron whispers. I have never heard of those before. No one has, Goswin says. That's the thing. Lieutenant Nando discovered a new evolution of Revenant, beyond even the blaspheme. He says they are immensely powerful and possess near-human intelligence. A Revenant with human intelligence, Fordron whispers. No good can ever come from that. Lieutenant Nando is trying to get volunteers together to go back out into the Yetzirah and track down the rest of these D Inferni. There are more of them? How can that be? None of us have ever heard of these things, then suddenly many of them appear all at once? It sounds suspicious. Lieutenant Nando is waiting to move until he has brought his findings before the elders and Captain Erisai. Nothing is official yet. Fordron nods. Continue to learn what you can and report back to me. If you are asked, volunteer for Vadis's mission. I fear that only graduates of our school of magic are capable of defeating such powerful undead. The Blackwings have faced more revenants and Draugr than any of the knights currently in service. Yes, sir. And what of Apprentice Livingston? What is being done about her? She is currently being held for questioning by the elders. They are preparing her disciplinary hearing for imitating Lieutenant Nando and going out into the Yetzira without permission. Be prepared to act on my signal, Fordron says. If the elders levy a harsh sentence on Dani, we must be prepared to move our plans forward. Her magic power cannot be permanently restricted. If we must out ourselves to save her, so be it. I will make sure that we have full support in this coup. Yes, sir. The elders must make their moves very carefully, Fordron says to himself aloud. They're deciding not only the fate of Apprentice Livingston with their decision, but all of Endelgian. Astral Realm, Yetzira, the Wastes, far beyond Checkpoint 5. The open-air temple, a bleak bastion erected by the Infernals in the desolate heart of the Wastes, stood as a testament to the pervasive aura of death that gripped their forsaken realm. A macabre tapestry woven from cold stone and perpetual darkness, the sanctuary offered no respite, only an eternal communion with the lifeless expanse of their grim dominion. Constructed in the barren landscape, devoid of life or trees, the temple's architecture manifested the Infernals' penchant for the morbid and the otherworldly. Towers of jagged, blackened stone soared into the void, casting long, sinister shadows that seemed to writhe in the absence of light. The structures, eternally cold and unwelcoming, stood as monuments to the inescapable chill that pervaded the wastes. No sunlight graced the temple, for in this benighted realm, the concept of day and night had lost all meaning. The frigid air clung to the stone surfaces like a spectral shroud, perpetuating a sub-zero temperature that mirrored the unrelenting coldness within the hearts of the Infernals. The landscape surrounding the temple stretched into an abyss of desolation, bereft of life or warmth. The ground, composed of lifeless soil, crunched beneath skeletal feet as the Infernals moved through their sanctuary. No trees adorned the barren horizon, and the air itself seemed to echo with a spectral silence that resonated through the lifeless expanses of the wastes. Within the temple's confines, corridors of cold stone led to chambers adorned with darkened altars and cryptic symbols, each element meticulously crafted to honor the domain of death. An oppressive atmosphere pervaded the sanctum, as if the very essence of despair had taken residence within the cold stone walls. In the realm of the Infernals, the open-air temple stood as a desolate bastion, a monument to the grim sovereignty of death and the perpetual misery that shrouded the wastes in an eternal veil of darkness. Seated upon a makeshift throne elevated above his servants, the king in the dark sits. His physical form was a grotesque amalgamation, a nightmarish fusion of skeletal remains and the vestiges of an ancient, pre-humanoid existence. His skull, the focal point of his grim countenance, displayed characteristics that harkened back to an era predating humanity. Angular and elongated, it featured prominent brow ridges and hollow eye sockets that radiated a malevolent energy. Within the depths of these sockets, a dim, baleful glow hinted at the unnatural forces animating his undead form. Tattered remnants of decaying flesh clung tenaciously to the king's skeletal frame, macabre testament to the lingering vestiges of life that once inhabited him. The skin, desiccated and pallid, appeared stretched over the contours of his skeletal structure, accentuating the unearthly aspects of his existence. The king's limbs, sinewy and elongated, betrayed an otherworldly strength. Bony protrusions and gnarled appendages extended from his frame, hinting at a lineage that transcended the evolutionary path of humanity. Clad in remnants of ancient ceremonial garb, the tattered fabric draped over his skeletal form like funeral shrouds, adding an air of spectral regality to his presence. His hands, adorned with elongated fingers that terminated in razor-sharp claws, spoke of a predatory lineage. Each movement seemed to carry the grace of a creature that once roamed primordial landscapes, a spectral hunter that had transcended the boundaries of life and death. His silhouette wavered in the ethereal gloom, revealing glimpses of a towering figure. The king's features were an enigma, obscured by the veils of shadow that clung to his form. Long, sinewy limbs hinted at an otherworldly grace, each movement calculated and purposeful. His eyes, deep pools of abyssal void, radiated an unsettling energy that spoke of eons of unyielding dominion. The king's attire, the amalgamation of tattered vestiges from forgotten epochs, draped across his form like the tattered remnants of time itself. Cloaked in layers of obsidian-hued fabric, his presence exuded an aura of ancient authority. Symbols etched into the fabric seemed to pulse with an otherworldly glow, marking a connection to primordial forces beyond mortal comprehension. The darkness that clung to the king in the dark was no mere absence of life. It was a living, breathing entity, an extension of his very existence. It undulated with an ominous vitality, responding to the whims of its master. The shadows seemed to dance around him, a spectral ballet echoing the ancient power that coursed through his being. As he moved, an eerie resonance accompanied each step, a symphony of whispers echoing through the void. The king's presence invoked a primordial fear, a resonance with the deepest recesses of the collective unconscious. It was a manifestation of an entity that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, an immortal specter standing at the crossroads of time. In the presence of the king in the dark, the air itself seemed to quiver with the weight of forgotten eras. His form, though cloaked in shadow, emanated an aura of malevolence and ancient wisdom, a harbinger of doom, and the embodiment of a darkness that transcended mortal understanding. The King in the Dark takes counsel with the 23, the oldest and most powerful of all of the revenants in existence. All of the Infernals are mostly humanoid in appearance, due to their evolutions all being sparked by the consumption of an exceptionally powerful human soul. The addition of this human soul acts as a catalyst to push the sentience and overall power of a revenant to become something much more. Unlike his servants, the king was never a human, but rather a cousin to humanity. Originally a hunter from an ancient tribe of hominids predating Homo sapiens, the king has gained strength and intelligence by existing for nearly 100,000 years and devouring thousands of lesser souls. The mages of Endelgian believe that revenants have a simple branched evolution, decided by their prey after gaining enough strength and awareness. Draugrs develop a taste for magic, and blasphemes are just stronger and more intelligent revenants that continue to devour life energy. Until Vatus's encounter with two of the Infernals, the mages of Endelgian were unaware that either Draugr or blasphemes can evolve further into what is called a D-Inferni. The D-Inferni are regarded by the other undead as the gods of death, and their power is exponentially greater than any of the other revenants. The mages have breached our lands. Infernal number 7, Huadic, says, "This is an act of war. We allow lesser undead to try and cross their walls almost daily." Infernal number 15, Danmui, argues, "How is that any different? The lesser undead are driven only by instinct. The mages understand that. They take no offense to their invasions. They regard them more as wild animals than enemies," Huadic explains. But these mages consciously chose to cross their wall and venture into our lands. They were openly defying the unspoken agreement we have had for over 100 years. Not only did they trespass, they slaughtered many of our lessers, and even several of our Azcatl. Infernal number 11, Tusok says, referring to the Draugr and the blasphemes. To the Infernals, even those stronger forms of revenants are regarded as little more than special pets. I had personally been observing the two of them grow. They were very close to evolving further. With enough time, they potentially could have become Oyuha. This word refers to the pseudo-infernals, or revenants that are on the verge of evolution, but lacking that final catalyst to spark their final push into becoming one of the Inferni. No great loss, Denwei says. Others will take their place in time. You are too much of a pacifist, Huadic growls. You never want to kill the humans. How did you even become one of us? I do not want to go to war with an entire world if it can be avoided, Denwei says. There is a difference. One of the mages was Lieutenant Vatus Nando. Number 4, Dabiel says. He is one of their most powerful warriors. Even their strongest is nothing to worry about. I have eaten ranked knights before, Wadiak boasts. But if you want to hide, be my guest. It was not just our Azcatl that they have slaughtered, Infernal number 3, Ereshkigal says. Numbers 6 and 22 have also been slain. Tlaloc and Shwang are gone? Denwei asks, surprised. Ereshkigal nods. The mage known as Vatus killed them both. The female Inferni summons a flying lizard dragonfly revenant into her hand. This one observed the battle. The mage has a powerful spell that can shut off our abilities. Impossible! Wadiak shouts. No human can defeat us. We are the highest of the hunters. No living creature can overcome our strength. The mages were also able to kill Chiwetel in the past, Ereshkigal says. They seem to be our natural enemies. It is only fitting that we move to eradicate them ourselves. Infernal number 2, Yamura Chasa, grins, revealing long fangs. Perhaps we need to reduce our numbers in order to double our strength. I think we have allowed ourselves to weaken by swelling our numbers. We are predators. We should not be in cooperation with each other. I should be consuming each of you to become stronger. The king looks to a frail-looking humanoid with pale skin and wet, stringy hair. The Inferni appears as though he has spent a long time submerged underwater, yet never rotting away. Zai, you are my most trusted ally. What is your opinion on this matter? The first Inferni, Zaiban, speaks up. I have been for the total elimination of the human race, ever since you made their existence known to me so long ago. If you wish them gone, I will carry out that will without question. You see, even the first is in support of wiping out the humans, Wadiak shouts. We have waited too long to carry out this necessity. The time has come for action. Enough, the king interrupts. You have all made valid arguments, but it is my decision to make. The remaining Inferni become silent, deferring to the king in the dark in all matters. As the oldest and most powerful of all undead, the king is feared by all that know he exists. We will gather more information on the strength and numbers possessed by the mages. We'll no longer remain passive. Each of you will press their defenses. If you are able to claim one of their checkpoints, do so, but do not continue to advance. Our war will be calculated. The mages will not even realize we have begun our attack until they have already been overcome, the king says. Why fight so conservatively? Ereshkigal asks. Should we not attack them with our entire force? Our combined might would be more than enough to completely wipe them out. Even if the mages were able to slay a few of our blasphemes, their losses would be total. I am not concerned with losing a few or all of our servants, the king says. I am only concerned with what secret abilities the mages may be hiding from us. They have clearly developed a way to counter our powers and overcome us. There is no other explanation as to how one mage was able to kill 2 of our numbers all by himself. You wish to learn first how the mage was able to defeat them, Ereshkigal asks. The king nods. Knowing what our only weakness is will be the only way to overcome it. Without that ability, the mages will have no way to counter us. They will become prey just like any other living creatures. What about the breaches in the human world? Yamorichasa asks. More appear each day. Many of the lessers have explored the holes and not returned. Numbers 1 and 12 will enter the human world and assess the situation. If the humans are able to contain the breaches, we will send more forces through, the king says, referring to Xibian and Fan Wuji. You wish to attack the mages and the human world at once? Danmui asks, surprised. What of it? The king asks, irritated. We cannot fight a war on 2 fronts, Danmui cautions. We need to pick our opponent and stick with them until they are defeated before moving on to another. We will be stretched too thin. The king glares at Danmui in annoyance. The abundance of life to consume in the human world will make up for any losses we incur. It is almost time to make ourselves known to the humans. Then we will devour each and every one of them. You urge caution against the mages, yet you seem to cast it aside when it comes to the human world. Do you not worry that they too may have some way to fight back against us? Why should a king of death worry about mortals that exist only as a food source? The mages pose a potential threat because of their magic. The humans are no different from the weak animal spirits that each of you consumed to grow in strength for thousands of years. Perhaps it is your own humanity leaking through that is producing this cowardice. I would advise you to purge that impurity from your body before addressing me again. That is, unless you wish to become my next meal. Danmui trembles, bowing in deference. No, my king. I will correct my weakness immediately. Gorge yourselves however you please. Gather your strength. Soon, we will bring the mages the war and death they sought to introduce to us.